the damn door. Oh, great. One of those, huh?
Oh, battery, 20% left. Right? Alright, that's fine.
This is a coin mission, isn't it? Ooh, what we got over here? Interesting.
At least it gave me a little bit of a warning. That's cool. Okay. Yeah, YouTube does see that I've got a stream available. Okay, I'm going to send. That's not what I meant to do. Good evening, everyone. It is us over here on HCTV. I am Shujin Tribble, or at least you can know me by that name. At the moment, we're going to be watching and reacting to the presidential debate. This is a very unusual thing for us to do. I will be joined shortly by IO and UnrenownedTech. They are getting themselves a little something to drink, and the timer just happened to have run out just a little bit. Things are a little bit different than what we would normally do. So if there is at any point a moment where you'd like to chime in, feel free. You can do that either on YouTube or over on Discord and let us know how things are going. So feel free to reach out to us and we will see what's going on. I do currently have Twitter and BlueSky open, although I don't have them showing up on the screen for everything. So if anything pops at the HCTV accounts on either one of those, I'll be able to take a quick look, see what's going on at the moment. Jack, I do have you over there. How you doing? And as a thing, the presidential debate is about to be happening. We're currently viewing it thanks to PBS, which is the Public Broadcasting Service.
This PBS News presentation is made possible by Consumer
And we will do our best to just kind of hang out in the back of it all.
Contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi.
So where are we?
We are slowly going crazy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Which crazy going slowly am I?
That's all right. Tech, are you back as yet?
No.
All right, that's fine. Because I don't see the video coming at this point.
This is the first and perhaps only time we will see these two candidates share a stage before the election, and the debate.
It hasn't quite started yet, so you're okay.
Yeah.
I'm watching it live on my big screen TV.
For tonight's ABC News presidential debate. We want to welcome viewers watching on ABC.
Yeah, I thought about pulling it up on the new laptop, but it was busy doing some power testing, so that's all right. Then I wouldn't be able to hear what's going on.
Okay, now it's going on.
For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden withdrew from the race on July 21st.
The moderators are doing the yap yap.
Yep. Which is perfectly fine. While they're talking it over, I'll give you a couple of things that what we are hoping for, what we're expecting, and what we're anticipating should not have happened. Item number one is we're very much expecting that Kamala will be coming out as the attorney, that she will simply put out the facts and she will have personality, but she will be very, very much of the, here are the facts of the situation, and here's how it's going to go for me. We've also said off air before we got started over here that we are very much hoping that she does not slide into any kind of snide attacks, because once that happens, the right-wing media will latch onto that and will have it devolve basically into that's all that she's got, completely bypassing the fact that Trump has done far and away more than any one person could do.
Okay, they've shook hands and they're now on the podiums.
Okay, so we are just waiting for some video.
Do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid, and I am actually the person on this stage that has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people.
Tech, are you with us?
I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people.
Okay, good start.
That's why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing. and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to startup small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax.
He's got that grumpy look on.
I wish I could say I don't have any video feed coming from Tech's side.
Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $1,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't.
Yeah, she's attacking the facts first about the economy.
They're taking in billions of
and
dollars
his
from China
rebuttal.
and other places they've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation has, which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up.
Yeah, it started.
Inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied
They don't call them insane
right
asylums
now by
anywhere in the world
African
anymore.
Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very
Except in
soon.
historical
And you
reference.
see what's happening.
Tech,
You see
I'm not
what's
getting any
happening with
video
towns
from
throughout
your
the
side.
United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently.
You see it now?
These are the people that she and Biden led into
No,
our
it's just
country,
it's just
and
a
they're
black.
destroying our country. They're dangerous.
Not even the
They're at
audio?
highest
No,
level
the audio's
of
coming.
criminality.
I just don't
We
have the
to
video
get 'em
coming
out.
from
We
them.
have to get them out fast. I created
Let me
one
try
of
it
the
this way.
greatest economies in the history.
Now?
Well, now you've got me.
No, can you see the video now?
What I see is video of your entire screen, and it's feedbacking to me.
Oh.
Should not laugh, should not laugh, should not laugh. Well, I can turn up the volume here. That help?
In the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight,
I don't
you're
know where
going to
it's
hear
yeah,
from the same
let me
old
try a
tired
different
playbook.
shortcut.
A bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight
Okay, somebody has got.
is a detailed and dangerous
IO,
plan
if
called
you're trying to
Project
pump through
2025
audio, don't.
that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that
Sign
the
in to
American
watch.
people
Really,
want
ABC?
a president.
There it is.
Yeah.
I've got video.
Who?
I've got
common. We know
yours.
what separates us.
There we go.
And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Oh, so you can
Number
actually
one, I
see
have
it says
nothing to do-
13
as
live
you
stream.
know, and as she knows better than
I've-
anyone,
I've
has
got the
nothing
video
to do
showing
with
up correctly now,
Project
yes.
2025.
Okay, cool.
That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas. I guess some good, some bad, but it makes no difference. I have.
But
nothing
you
to
have
do.
no idea what
Everybody
it
knows
is,
I'm an
so
open
fuck
book.
off.
Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially.
how can you know if any
and
of it's
create
good
a
if you
great
don't have it
economy
read?
like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic. And the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic.
No,
we
you didn't.
handed them over a country where the economy and where the stock
No, we
market
did
was
terrible.
higher than it
We
was
failed in
before
so
the
many ways.
pandemic came in.
Failed
Nobody's
when?
ever seen
Which-
anything
what?
like it. We made ventilators for the entire world. We got gowns. We got masks.
No, we
did
didn't.
things
We
that
bought
nobody
it from
thought
other
possible.
countries.
And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounced back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So
Okay.
Donald Trump has
What
no
I
plan
remember
for
of
us.
the pandemic,
And when you look at
medical
his economic plan, it's all
personnel
about tax
were
breaks for the
screaming
richest
for supplies because there
I am
wasn't
offering
enough.
what I describe as an opportunity economy.
That
and the
they had to
best
get
economists
creative
in our
with-
country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative
I'm already
plans
growling.
for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
That's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say.
That's why your
Went to
microphone
the
is
Wharton
off.
School
No,
of Finance,
don't turn on
and
his
many
microphone.
of those
Fuck
professors,
you.
The top professors.
Oh, my
think my
God.
plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan.
There is no
It's a plan
reason
that's
why
gonna
his microphone
bring
should have
up
been turned
our
back on.
worth, our value
Unless
as
there's
a
supposed to
country.
be
It's going to make
a
people want to be able
an
to go and
acknowledged
work and
rebuttal
create
time?
jobs and
No,
create a lot
man,
of
leave the
good,
fucking-
solid money for our
Yes, there is supposed to be a.
and just to finish
It's
off, she
question one of
doesn't
them.
have a plan. She copied
The
Biden's
answer?
plan,
There's
and it's
rebuttal,
there's-
and then
4 sentences, like run, spot,
there's
run.
questions
4
and answers,
sentences that
rebuttals,
is just,
follow-ups,
we'll try and lower
clarifications, and
taxes.
responses.
She doesn't have a plan. Take a look
Yeah.
at her plan.
So it's
She
okay.
doesn't have a plan.
They're just
Mr.
not allowing
President,
them
I do
to
want
talk
to drill
over
down on
each other.
something you both brought
Yep.
up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country.
She does have a
As you know,
plan.
many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer.
Yes.
Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it costs the typical family nearly $4,000
She has a
year.
plan and it isn't
Do you
loading up
believe
her
Americans
wallet.
can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to
making
have
her
higher
friends
prices.
rich.
What's going to have, and who's going to have higher
Oh,
prices?
did I say
is
that loud?
China
Wait.
and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years.
Who's gonna have-
I was the only president ever.
So-
China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions
Oh,
of dollars.
idiot.
I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest
Tariffs
inflation
are
perhaps
not
in the history of our country.
to the
because
country,
I've
they're
never
to the
seen a worse
people
period of time.
and the companies
People
that
can't
buy
go
the
out and buy
product.
cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our
He's not a
country are
businessman, he's a con
absolutely
artist.
dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that
Yes, he
the
is
Trump
communist.
economy was great,
Hold
that
on.
their economy was terrible.
Vice President
The
Harris, I do want
polls-
to ask for your response.
the
And you heard what
polls
the
are
president
not
said there, because the
economists.
Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place.
So
how do you respond?
he's trying to say,
Well, let's be clear that
Vox
the
populi.
Trump administration resulted in
That
a
doesn't
trade
work.
deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended
No,
up
don't
doing is
avoid the
under
topic.
Donald Trump's
Why are the
presidency,
tariffs still in effect,
he ended
lady?
up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out, when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with our
She's not
allies,
answering the question.
focusing on investing
That's
in
pissing me off.
American-based technology so that we win the
Yeah.
race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to
I expect
support
him to make
America's
things up and not answer
workforce
anything, but I
so that
expect
we don't
her
end up having on the short end of
actually
the
answer the
stick
question.
in terms of workers' rights. But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point, when we know that Xi was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows
American
she's a Marxist.
manufacturing is
Her
crap
father's a
because all
Marxist
those
professor. in
jobs went
economics,
overseas.
And he taught her well. But when you look at what she's
Let him
done
name
to
call.
our country,
Ignore
and
it.
when you look at these millions and
She
millions
can't
of
do
people
it.
that are pouring into our country
Degrade her
monthly,
image.
where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not the 15 that people say, and
So
I think it's
he's
a lot
trying to go
higher than the
for
21.
the-
That's bigger than New York State.
he's trying to
pouring
go
in.
for
and
the-
just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of
immigration
these people
fears.
coming in are
Again.
criminals. And that's
Stay
bad for
calm.
the economy, too. You know, you mentioned before. We'll talk
Stay
about
calm,
immigration later.
Kamala.
Well, bad
He's
immigration
calling you
is the worst thing
names.
that can happen to our economy.
Cats.
They
Stay
have,
calm,
and
sweetie.
She has destroyed
He's a
our
big
country
bully,
with policy
and he's called you
that's
names.
insane.
You're a
Almost policies
prosecutor.
that you'd say
You
they
take
have to
these
hate our
people-
country.
She's taking
President
notes,
Trump.
lady.
Thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue
She's taking
of
notes.
abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even
No.
have, and you can look at the governor of West
they
Virginia,
don't.
the previous
Whoa.
governor of West Virginia, not the current
Can it
governor, who's doing
happen?
an excellent
Yes.
job.
Because
but the governor
of an
before,
extenuating
he said
medical
the baby will
situation.
be born,
That
and
is
we
it.
will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. That's why I did that,
That's what
because
he's
that
trying to do.
predominates.
Here it is.
Because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I
But
think is
why
a
does the
horrible
government
pick, by
have
way,
the
for our
right to
country,
be in my
because
womb
he
and
is
tell me what
really
I can do
adamant.
with my body?
But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years they've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the
Abortion in the ninth month
genius
is
and
usually
heart and
because
strength
something's been found and the
of
baby
6 Supreme Court
life would not
justices,
be.
we were able to do that. Now, I believe in the exceptions
also
for
usually a threat to
rape,
the mother.
incest, and life of the
Yeah.
mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do.
Ronald Reagan.
Exceptions.
That's not
Very
the name that
important.
you wanna be
But we were
dropping
able
right
to
now,
get
my
it,
guy.
and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart.
Reagan was a
for
fine president. The
52
more
years.
he slept, the safer
Every
we
legal
were.
Scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people
they
could vote.
didn't.
And that's
No,
what
they
happened.
didn't.
happened.
No,
Now,
they didn't.
Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas,
didn't tear
the vote
our
was somewhat
country
liberal,
apart.
Much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal
No, they
government.
don't.
I did a great service in doing
Every
it. It took
state
courage
that
to do
has
it. And
put
the
it
Supreme
onto
Court
the
had great
docket
courage
has
in
come
doing
up and
it.
said,
And I give
yes,
tremendous credit to
we
those 6
are going to
justices.
keep
There is
our
no
right.
state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby.
We
after
believe
it's
that
born.
women are not-
Madam Vice President, I
Thank
wanna
you.
get your
Thank you.
response
Did
to
you
it.
hear
bears.
that? Did you hear
Well,
that?
as
Yep.
I said, you're going to hear
In
a
no
bunch of
state
lies,
where there's a baby
and that's
born
not
is it legal to
actually
kill
a
it.
surprising fact. Let's understand how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade.
True.
And they did exactly
Yeah, that's
as
called
he
infanticide.
intended. And now in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail,
Yep.
and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot.
Yep.
She didn't
That's
want
a real
that.
thing.
Her husband didn't want that. A 12 or 13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term? They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban because we've gotten
And the
what
best thing they
everybody
did
wanted.
was not in
Democrats, Republicans, and everybody
digging
else,
his own
and
grave.
every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it
No.
may take a little time.
I got good
but
news,
for
and I got
52
bad
years,
news.
this issue has
Yes,
torn
it's
our
good for
country
states to
apart.
have
and they've wanted it
choices
back
on
in the
how
states.
they're
And I
going to run
did something
things.
that nobody thought
But
was
if memory
possible.
serves,
The
it was
states
also
are
the
now
Confederate
voting.
states that
What she
decided
says
that the
is
states'
an
right
absolute lie.
to
And
continue
as far as the abortion
slavery
ban, no,
was
I'm
a
not in
states'
favor of
right
abortion
thing.
ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it
Well,
came
I
to your
won't
desk?
have to.
Trump is
because,
trying to
again,
make women
Whoa,
slaves.
Number
again.
one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50 and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know
So-
what it reminds me of? When they said they're going to get student loans terminated, and it ended up being a total
So
catastrophe.
you don't even want to answer the
student
question.
loans,
You're going
and
to
then
go ahead and you're going to
her-
say,
I think
no, she
probably
can't
her
do
boss,
squats, so it
if
doesn't
you call him
matter.
a boss, he spends all his time on the
And
beach.
you know what? Here's the
But
thing
look,
about that.
her boss
That's
went
what
out
people said
and
about
said,
Trump
we'll
when
do it
Trump
again.
first
We'll
ran.
do it a different
He
way. And he
won.
went out, got rejected again by the
And it
Supreme
surprised the
Court.
hell out of a
So
lot of
all these
people.
students got
So let him
taunted with this whole thing
dismiss
about
her.
this whole whole idea.
If you haven't
And
noticed,
how unfair that would have
he's
been
getting
part of
more
the reason
educated
they lost
every minute
to the
she's
millions and millions of people that had to
He's
pay off
losing
their
right
student
now.
loans. They didn't get it for free. But they were saying it's the same way
I
that
would
they talked
love
about
to
that,
watch him
that
blow
they
up
talk
and walk
about
off
abortion.
TV and
But if
everything
I
else.
could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you
But he
would
looks so
veto it if he
tired.
did come to your desk.
Well, I didn't discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me, but I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans.
Answer
They didn't
the-
even come
answer
close to
the
getting
question.
student loans. They taunted young people and a lot of other people that had
Answer
loans.
the question, sir.
They can never get this
He
approved.
won't
So
answer
it
the
doesn't matter
question
what she
because
says
he's
about
trying to
going to
get the
Congress.
world
Well,
to
wonderful.
think
Let's go to
that
Congress.
a
Do it.
woman can't
But the
do
fact
what
is
he
that
can
for
do.
years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government, and we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on abortion.
Vice President Harris, I want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support.
She's kind of going, what the hell is he spouting
Roe v.
about?
Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under
You
Donald
can see on his
Trump's
face he
abortion
doesn't care
bans.
about women.
Couples who pray
Of course not.
and dream
They're
of having
cocksocks
a
to him.
family are being denied IVF.
Oops, did I say that out loud?
What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who are working 1 or 2 jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the
He looks like
majority
a
of
little boy
Americans
that
believe
was
in a
class
woman's
and
right
got
to make
caught
decisions
doing
about her own
something he
body.
wasn't supposed to, and the
And that
teacher's
is why,
reprimanding him,
in
and he just
every
doesn't
state
care,
where
so
this
he's just
issue
kinda
has
looking
been
off
on the
into the
ballot in
distance,
red
waiting
and
for
blue
the
states
teacher to
both,
shut up so
the
he can go to the
people
playground.
of America have voted.
It's the
for
last
freedom.
week of school.
Vice President Harris.
Excuse
Go
me, let me
ahead.
respond.
Suspend
Another
me.
lie.
I don't
Another
care.
lie. I have been a leader on IVF.
That's what he looks like.
Which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very
I was a
negative
very
decision
good boy
on
in the
IVF
playground. I
from
didn't
the
beat up
Alabama
that kid.
courts,
That kid ran
I
into
saw
my
the people
fist.
of Alabama and the legislature
Exactly.
2 days later
12
voted it in.
times.
I've been a leader on it.
It was
They
my
know
ball.
that, and
It means the
everybody
good
else
balls.
knows it.
Obviously
I have been
belongs
a
to me.
leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing,
I've been a leader.
you should
I've been a
ask,
leader. I've been a leader. I've been a leader.
will she allow
How?
abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th
How?
month?
Come on.
Okay,
That's the
would you
question.
do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v. Wade,
Answer the question, would you
could,
veto?
you could do.
Yes, he's been a leader in fertilization and IVF, wanking off.
She's
And
taking
probably
the
after
bait.
birth.
Stop.
Just look
Come
at the
on.
governor,
Let
former governor
him
of
wind
Virginia.
himself
The governor
up.
of Virginia said, we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
The
We're going
more
to turn now
false
to
things he says, the
immigration
more
and border
ammo
security. We know
have
it's an
against
issue
him.
that's important to Republicans,
Not that we
Democrats,
really need
voters
anymore.
across the board in this country. Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration. This past June, President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act?
Probably 'cause they were
And
too
would
busy
you have done anything differently
correcting
from
our
President Biden?
foreign national policies
I'm the only
with our other
person on this
countries and our
stage
allies.
who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more
See, he
resources
doesn't
to
care about
allow
drug
us
addicts.
to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human
He
beings.
likes
You know what
drug-
happened
That was a
to that
hard
bill?
eye roll, too. Like, his
Donald
head
Trump got
tilted
on the phone,
back. He rolled his eyes
called
so
up
hard
some
about
folks
the
in
drugs.
Congress and said, kill
See,
the bill.
he
And you know
likes-
why?
or he likes drug addicts because he can throw the drug addicts in jails where his friends who own the jails can make money off of the government.
At a time where
Except didn't Biden just sign a bill saying bye-bye?
Who engages in solutions
or executive
who
order?
Actually addresses the problems at hand.
No more for-profit
What we
prisons.
have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about
well, in a way she did. She answered the reason why Biden took so long to get Border Patrol
out of exhaustion and
harder restrictions,
and I will tell
because
you
they were working on the original bipartisan thing. And Trump,
you will not hear him talk about your needs,
I remember
your
Trump
dreams,
actually
and your
had
desires.
reached out to his
and
people
I'll tell
and
you,
told
I
them,
believe you
vote no on it,
a president
vote no on
who
it,
actually puts
do
you
not
first,
allow it
and
to
I
pass.
pledge to you that I will.
And
Vice
after
President
that
Harris, thank you. President
conversation,
Trump, on that point, I want to get your response.
Well, I would like
they voted no on
it.
it. The people who literally helped create it
that would have put
did a 180 and said, no, we don't support this.
Yep,
First,
that's
let
what
me
they go
respond
with.
to the rallies.
Right.
She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there, and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics.
Leave it, let
That's
it go.
because
Don't-
people
don't
wanna
say a
take
word.
Their
Hun,
country
don't
back.
say a word.
Our country
Don't
is being
say
lost.
a
We're a
thing.
failing nation, and it happened 3.5
Don't take
years
the bait.
ago. And
He's
what-
just
what's
saying
going
how
on
big his
here,
dick
you're going to end
is
up in
right
World
now.
War III. Just to go into another subject, what they have done to
You
our
gotta admit,
country
when
by
you have
allowing
small
these
hands-
millions and millions of people to come into our country,
Sorry, it was
and look
just a
at
joke.
what's
Low
happening
blow.
to the towns all
Literally.
over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or
Stormy
Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it.
Now.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in.
Oh,
They're
God, that was
eating the
proven to be
cats.
false.
They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's
Honey,
happening
don't say a
in
word.
our
Don't say a
country.
word. Don't
And
say a
it's
word.
shame.
Don't
As
say a
far as
word.
rallies
Let the
are concerned,
moderators
as
You know
far
what?
as-
that was
the
found to be
reason they
false.
go is they like what I say.
To
they
a
want
certain
to
She's
degree.
bring our
laughing.
country back.
To a certain
they want
degree.
to make America
I think
great
that
again.
she
Very
is
simple phrase.
actually
Make America
baiting
great
him
again.
into doing this
She's
stuff.
destroying this country, and if she becomes
think maybe
president,
that's what she's
this
doing.
country doesn't have a
That she's
chance of
actually
success.
leading
Not
him
only
into
success,
it.
will end
I-
up being
I-
She looks like she's
Venezuela
trying to
on
not cry,
steroids.
not laugh, and
I just
also
wanna
not
clarify
pity
here.
him.
You bring
all
up
at the same time.
Springfield, Ohio.
She's
and
doing her
ABC
job as a
News did reach out to
prosecutor.
Here it is.
there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well,
All
I've
this-
seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
The people on television say my dog was
Mute 'em.
taken and used for
mute his
food.
mic-
So
you're right.
maybe he
Mute his
said that,
microphone.
and maybe that's a good
Yeah.
thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But the
television.
people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by
Turn off
the
his
people
fucking
that went
microphone.
there.
Oh my
Again, the
God!
Springfield city
You've
manager
got to
says there's
mute
no evidence of that.
button
Vice
for
President Harris, I'll
exactly
let you
this.
respond to the rest of what you've
God
heard.
damn it!
You talk about extreme. You know, this is, I think, one of the reasons why in this election I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of
See, he
former
just rolled
Vice
his eyes. He
President
doesn't
Dick
care.
Cheney and
Good.
Congress
See,
member Liz
doing it
Cheney.
again.
And if you want to really know the inside track on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a four-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has
Oh,
said he
he's
is
pissed
dangerous
now.
and
He got the
unfit.
pursed lips.
His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another
Because
Trump
people are betraying him,
term.
and she's bringing it up.
And when we
She's-
listen to this kind of rhetoric,
Oh, she's
when
got
the issues that
needles.
affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you.
I've
because
never seen
when
a
I hear
starfish like
See,
that
I'm
on
a
a
different
person's
kind of
face.
a person. I fired
it is.
most of those people.
Oh,
Not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job.
Oh,
I
he's
fired
trying
them.
to
They
discredit
never
all the
fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people whose were just killed, viciously and violently killed, and I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book. Because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they? But
withdrawal from Afghanistan.
Such a poor job.
Not Biden. Biden just was dealing with the aftermath.
Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president, in history by far.
No, you didn't.
Let me continue on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier, so let's get back to your deportation proposal that the Vice President has reacted to as well. President Trump, you call this the largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country. You say you would use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control,
Vance has a couple more
using the U.S. military. You also said you would use local police.
It's really embarrassing to watch them buy a donut.
How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher.
Witness, thank you for that.
What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals.
I love it when people
to come in, drug dealers to come into our country, and they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the greatest mistakes in history for them to allow, and I think they probably did it because they think they're going to get votes, but it's not worth it because they're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything.
You'll never have
like
a better president than me.
They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the
question
world.
Was, how are you going to deport 11
all over the world
million
except
people?
here? Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this country is
Are they going to deport people like me who are
migrant crime.
green card
happening
holders?
At levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall
Type of dreamer, child of American who can't get
here we go.
They were defrauding
he just
statements.
took the
didn't
metric
include
FBI
the
was
worst
using
cities.
to
They
prove Trump
didn't
wrong.
include the cities with the worst crime. It was a fraud, just like their number of 818,000 jobs that they said they created turned out to be a fraud.
President Trump, thank you. I'll let you respond, Vice President Harris.
Well, I think this is so rich, coming from someone who has been prosecuted for national security crimes, economic crimes, election interference.
Like Mar-a-Lago?
Has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big court appearance is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear, where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries.
I know this is completely off topic, but
the
I
American
really like
people
her
are
earrings.
exhausted with this
Oh, they're
same
gorgeous.
old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me.
I started wearing
Every one
pearls
of
more
those
often because of
cases
her.
Was started by them against their political opponent, and I'm winning most
I didn't
of
do
them,
it,
and I
teacher.
will win the rest
It was
on
the
appeal.
quiet kid in
And
the
you saw
corner
that
who
with the
put the
decision
paint
that came
all
down
over
just
your
recently
desk
from the
and
Supreme Court. I'm
your
winning most of them,
folders.
but those are cases. It's called weaponization.
Ignore
Never
the
happened
paint
in
on
this
my
country.
hands.
They weaponized the Justice Department. Every
I
one
tried
of
to
those
stop
cases
them.
was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani
Because only
Willis
I care about.
to the Attorney General of New York and the DA in New York. Every one of those
Nobody will
cases.
care about you the way I
and
care
then
about you.
they say, "Oh, he's a criminal." They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially guilty on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all.
See, that's who he really wants to debate right now.
2 months ago,
you don't want to talk
was
to her.
Thrown out.
He wants Biden.
It's weaponization, and
he has no respect for women.
It's never happened in this country.
Of course not.
They used it to try and win an election.
Grinds his gears that he's on the same stage with
all she needs to say is the Department of Justice is an independent
let's
organization.
talk about extreme
and
and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the Constitution of the United States, that he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies.
He tried to make it look like he was chuckling at the absurdity of her statement.
Expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House.
Because he doesn't have a proper rebuttal, so he tries to laugh it off.
Because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people
Vice President
to stop
Harris.
him.
Thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
This is the one that weaponized.
No,
not
turn
me.
off his microphone.
She weaponized.
Turn off the microphone.
I probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about
really?
Bullet to the head. You took a bullet to the ear.
The threat to democracy was a fake Russia investigation that went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest
and a lot of the farmers
in diverse sources of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have
fracking is very dangerous.
Increase in domestic oil production in history.
I think Krypton exploded because of fracking.
Recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values, let me tell you, I grew up a middle-class kid, raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy our first home when I was a teenager.
She should have just said, look.
The values I bring to the importance of home ownership, knowing not everybody got handed $400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times.
We're looking at better
regulation is a value that I bring to my work, to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders
as well as
to increase
limiting where
3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work
that's what she should have said.
Related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather.
Oh God,
and my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams.
See,
he
knows she dodged the question.
Changed. And what is important is that
he recognizes when somebody pulls the same stunt he does.
And a perspective that is about lifting people up
and now he's got ammunition.
People down. And name-calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I'm sorry, if I was a teacher, I intend to be that president.
President Trump.
But honestly, first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was a Brooklyn builder, Brooklyn, Queens, and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions.
Let's see. Nasty woman in 5, 4.
So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies, like She was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out. Wait a minute. I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical left liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish, one thing so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over,
which turned out to
they
be a
got
really
rid
bad
of it,
thing.
started getting rid of it.
Transgender operation on illegal immigrants in prison.
They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up to where I was because they had no choice, because the prices of energy were quadrupling and doubling. You saw what happened to gasoline.
Quadrupling
So they said, let's
and
go back to
doubling.
Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election, they'll go back to destroying our country, and oil will be dead, fossil fuel will be dead. We'll go back to windmills, and we'll go back to solar, where they need a whole desert to get some energy to come out. You ever see a solar plant? By the way, I'm a big fan of solar, but they take 400, 500 acres of desert soil. These are not good things for the environment.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have an election in just 56 days. And I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy, and the role of a president in a moment of crisis. Mr. President, on January 6th, you told your supporters to march.
Why the hell aren't the moderators
right there
not
with them. The country
killing his mic?
What played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack.
Because the question's for him.
Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. Peacefully and patriotically, I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people that she allowed to pour in? She was the border czar, remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet. That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people?
Do you regret anything that happened on that day?
When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America, they're coming in from all over the world?
No, he doesn't have any regrets.
All over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in Seattle?
He's actually angry.
They went into Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask you.
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question.
He's
as
trying
we move
again.
Forward toward another election.
He's asking
Is there
the question
anything
again.
you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up for a speech. I said, I think it's going to be big. I went to Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C.
No, you didn't.
And the mayor put it back in writing, as you know. I said, you know, this is going to be a very big rally or whatever you want to call it. And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape.
No.
It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do a job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died.
Please, honey, don't say
And
anything
understand,
other than the facts.
The former
Please.
president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side. Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the president said, the former president said, stand back and stand by. So for everyone watching who remembers what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to turn the page. And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in our campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos, and to end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
I don't like the
Let me just
answer that
follow up
she's
here.
giving. This is
It was
no,
a different
turn
term,
off the
and it was a
fu-
term
oh, turn
that
off the
related to
fucking
energy
microphone.
because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where
This has
bloodbath
nothing
was.
to do-
Also, on Charlottesville, that story has been, as you would say, debunked. Laura
not.
Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people.
Sean Hannity.
They covered it.
I don't
If
trust
they go
anything
an
that came out of his
extra
mouth. If he
sentence,
told
they
me
will
the
see
sky
it
was falling and
perfect.
there was a meteor in it, I
was
still
debunked
don't
in
trust
almost
the
every
microphone.
newspaper, but they still
Turn
bring it up,
off
just like they
the
bring
mic-
2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you
Turn
this. You
off
talk
the
about
mic- God
the Capitol.
damn it.
Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up
close the
at
border,
4
you're
o'clock in
actually
the afternoon, you'll say,
aggravate
come
the
on,
problem.
come on down to the office, let's sign a bill.
have to enforce
If
the border
if
and
he
have a
signs
process
a
for
bill
immigration.
that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people,
I wanna-
unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue because it really brings us this into focus, truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in
No,
2020?
I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
He can't acknowledge that
sarcastically,
he
you know
lost.
that.
He
It was said,
refuses
oh,
to
we lost by a
acknowledge
whisker.
losing
That was said
anything ever.
sarcastically.
Because
Look,
he wasn't taught.
There's so much proof. All you
to
have to do
admit
is look
defeat
at it.
in
And they
any
should
way,
have
shape,
sent
or
it
form.
back to
There's
the
only
legislatures for approval.
chumps
I got
do that.
almost 75 million votes,
chumps
the
wind up
most
in the
votes
ground.
any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls, and we have to have it. We have to have
Wait a
borders,
second.
and we have to have good elections.
He was ranting
Our elections are bad.
for
A lot of
ages
these
that the
illegal
2020
immigrants
election
coming
was
in,
fraudulent.
They're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come into our country.
I did watch all of these pieces of video. I didn't detect the sarcasm, lost by a whisker. We didn't quite make it. And we should just point out here as clarification, and you know this, you and your allies, 60 cases in front of many judges, many of them
No
Republican.
judge looked at it.
And said
they
there was
said
no
we didn't have
widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said
Turn
we
off
didn't
his
have
microphone.
standing, a
Turn off his
technicality.
microphone.
Can
He
you
made his
imagine a
point.
system
Shut him the
where
fuck
a
up.
person in an election doesn't have
Oh
standing?
my
The president
God.
of the
Turn
United
off.
States doesn't have standing.
Why?
That's
If you
how we
have a
lost.
mute button,
if you
why
look
would
at
you
the
not
facts,
use
and
it
I'd
when
love
he's-
to have you'll do a special on
This
it.
is actually
I'll
kind of
show
cool. Look
you
how he's reacting.
Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show
He
you
is throwing a
Pennsylvania,
temper
and I'll show you.
tantrum.
We have so many facts and statistics.
No, you
But
don't.
you know what? That doesn't
you
matter
don't.
because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying,
Please,
David.
Ms. Harris,
Mr. President, thank you.
tell
Vice President
him-
Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that.
His
that he
mic's
lost
off
by
now.
whisker, so he still believes he did not lose
Tell the
election.
moderator, use the mute
that was
button,
won
please.
by President Biden and
Tell him.
yourself. But I do want to
Tell
ask
him.
you about
Don't forget, they've
something
been a
you've
little
talked about
liberal
the
with
last couple of
her.
days. This was a post from President Trump about this upcoming election just weeks away. He said, when I win, those people who cheated, and then he lists
I'm not
donors,
saying
voters,
cut him
election
off. I'm saying
officials. He
use
says
the
will be
mute button.
prosecuted to the fullest
Period.
extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences. One of your campaign's top lawyers responded saying, we won't let Donald Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time.
That
processing
stung.
That's
But
good.
we cannot afford to have a president of the United States
Donald Trump, you're fired.
attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that
See, now he's
I
putting
have
on the game
traveled the world
face,
as
trying
Vice
to make
President
it.
of the United States.
No, she's lying.
And world leaders
good.
are laughing at Donald Trump. I have talked with military leaders, some of whom worked with you.
In the general
and they say
chat.
you're a disgrace.
In our Discord.
And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate
Okay.
and deny what over and over again are court cases you have
I'm just pointing you at it.
because you did in fact
didn't-
lose
I
that
didn't even know. I'm
election.
sorry. I've got, like,
It
14
leads
things
one
going
to
through my head.
believe that perhaps we
She's-
do not
she's
have in
talking
the candidate
at
to my
him.
right the temperament
Shouldn't be.
or the ability to not be confused
She's being
about
dismissive now
fact.
because it
That's
hurts.
deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just tell you about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man. He's a tough person, smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the whole world blowing up? 3 years ago it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as
Because you empowered
president.
Israel to attack
They were
Gaza
afraid of
with
him.
your
China
stupid
was afraid, and I
policies.
don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid
Wasn't
of
it
him.
the other way around?
North Korea was afraid of him. Look at what's going on with North Korea, by the way. He said Russia was afraid of him. I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that. But he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline in the world. Look,
How did Biden
Viktor
have anything
Orban
to do with what happens
said
in
it.
Europe?
He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems
Doubtful.
when Trump was president.
Doubtful.
But when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate, he'd be running instead of her. She got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What you did, you talk about a threat to democracy. He got 14 million votes, and they threw him out of office. And you know what? I'll give you a little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. But he got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0
Where is he
votes.
pulling
him.
this
When
out of
she
his
ran,
hat?
She was the first
He's
one
making
to
up
leave
numbers.
because she failed. And now she's running.
Thought so.
I don't understand it, but
Mr.
I'm
President,
okay with it
Mr.
because
So in other words, he's pulling it out of his
they
ass.
do very well.
We've got a lot more to get to.
Turning now
Yes.
to the Israel-Hamas war and the hostages who are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international
Agreed.
humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October 7, Hamas,
Keep it short and sweet,
a
and then
terrorist
answer the question.
organization, slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. many of them young people who were simply attending a concert. Women were horribly raped. And so absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters, because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it will end is we need a ceasefire deal and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
Thank you.
President Trump,
That's
how
good
would
answer.
you negotiate with Netanyahu and also Hamas in order to get the hostages out and prevent the killing of more innocent civilians in Gaza?
Question.
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going
Doesn't
on
have
over
anything
there.
to do.
But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population.
Let him do his thing.
Because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel. Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money
He's self-destructing
for
at this
Hamas or
point.
Hezbollah or
His
any of the
anger
28 different
and his narcissism, because he's been
spheres of
questioned
terror.
not
And
only
they
by
are
her, but by
spheres of terror.
the
Horrible terror.
moderators.
They had no money.
And they've
It was
even
a
told
big
him
story,
he was
and you know
wrong,
it. You covered it
which
very
don't
well,
do
actually.
that to a narcissist.
They had no
Otherwise,
money
they lose
for
their
terror.
mind.
They were
So right now
broke.
he sees
now they're a
not
rich
only her as the
nation,
enemy,
and now
but he
what
sees
they're
the moderators
doing is
as
they're
the enemy.
spreading that
He
money
has
around.
forgotten that he's
Look at
talking
what's
to the public.
happening with the
He's
Houthis
only
and
addressing
Yemen.
the people in the
Look
room.
at what's going
See how he
on
doesn't
in
look
the
at the
Middle East.
camera?
This would have
She
never
looks at the
happened.
camera when she
I will
answers
get
the
that
question.
settled and fast, and I'll get
He's
the
looking
war
at the moderator.
with
He
Ukraine
is
and
literally
Russia ended.
attacking
If I'm
the
president-elect,
moderators.
I'll get it done
a good
before
point.
He
even
is
becoming
blowing. He is
president.
self-destructing.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that. He's trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on
She's
national
looking at the
security
camera.
and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that
I never
he
called the
can
teacher
do
a
whatever
bitch,
the hell
Mr.
he
Principal.
wants and go into
She's
Ukraine.
just having.
It is
she's
well known
just
that
being
he
hysterical.
said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It
I'm
is
waiting for
well
him to
known
say
he
something about her being on her
exchanged
period or
love letters
some
with
shit.
Kim Jong-un. And
It's
it is
possible.
absolutely
I would
well
not be-
known
If he
You know?
that these
self-destructs enough,
dictators and autocrats
I wouldn't be
are
surprised if
rooting
he did.
for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have
See, now
worked
that's
with
not getting to
have
him,
told me
because the way
you
he
are a
sees it is
disgrace.
she's being
That is
jealous
why we
that he
understand
got
that we
complimented
have
by
to have
by
a
them,
president
and she
who is
didn't.
not consistently
That's not
weak
pissing
and
him off.
wrong on
Vice
national
President
security,
Harris.
including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard
So
our
she actually
military.
calmed him
Vice
down
President
a little
Harris,
bit.
thank you.
And she's the one that caused
Turn
it.
off.
That's weak on national security by allowing.
Well, technically, it is his
every
turn,
nation
but the moderators are supposed to have a say before he does something.
168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week, said, I hope she wins. And I think he meant it, because what he's gotten away with is
Suddenly Putin's
absolutely
bad now.
incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me.
He was a good guy
The
just
leaders
seconds
of other
ago.
countries think
Now
that
he's
they're
a
weak
bad guy.
and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question.
Wait, Putin actually
Why does
endorsed
Biden go in
Harris?
and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single
This was
biggest
after
deal that Russia's ever
Russian,
made, Nord Stream 2, the
operatives
biggest
got
pipeline
caught
anywhere in the world, going to
funding
Germany and all over Europe.
alt-right
Because they're weak and they're
news agencies.
ineffective. And Biden, by
Yeah,
the way, gets
President
paid
Trump.
a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
Oh yeah,
Right
like
back with much
tens
more
of
this
millions of
historic
dollars
ABC
being
News
funded
presidential
into
debate from the National Constitution Center right here in Philadelphia.
anti-Ukraine, anti-Palestine, pro-right-wing, the whole 9 yards. Okay, so there's at least 2 commercial breaks. This sounds like it's the first commercial break.
Continue after this.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you mute
now,
it?
Yeah, I
This
can.
PBS News presentation.
Okay. So yeah, he is losing his fucking mind. He is just self-destructing. This commercial break might just be what he needs to calm down, but I could see him like not coming back after this commercial break. And I really hope that they're recording it and show it later if he does that. Him like self-destructing off camera during a commercial break and just walking out. If he does it. I don't want him to do it. I want him to stay for the whole debate.
I want him to have a tantrum.
I
want
think-
him to.
I think it's
you
coming.
have your wish is granted. He is having a tantrum.
Well, he is, but he's doing it from the low simmer, from the barely contained part at this point. We definitely want to see him actually like pulling a WWE, grab the podium and try to wrench it out of the ground kind of
No,
thing.
no, no. I want to see him throw himself to the floor like a toddler. Like,
Toddler. No. No. You're thinking of Elon Musk, who had his mom address the internet and ask the internet to be nicer to him.
No, dude, no, because I'm sorry. Lizards don't have that kind of vocal capacity to do. Have you looked at his countenance? He looks like he is a lizard folk. Come on.
Musk?
Yes.
No. I'm sorry, but if lizard folk, if the conspiracy of lizard folk invading the world is true, he would be dinner because he's marbled. This is coming from a big guy, myself. Yeah.
I'm just gonna heckle fish here and go, lizard people, beware the crab cat.
So he is self-destructing. Unfortunately, when she was talking about how the dictators are blowing smoke up his rear end to puff him up, that had the inverse effect that I think she was going for. It actually calmed him down because that tripped in his mind, oh, she's only bringing it up because she's jealous they're not praising her the way they praised me. And then when it was convenient to throw them under the bus,
He did.
He did. Right. Now, instead, she could have done anything else to push his buttons, and it would have been even worse in terms of how he lost his mind. But instead, she actually inadvertently calmed him down a little bit. So I don't think he's going to storm off the stage during the commercial break.
No.
I just hope they record it if he does. That's all.
And the way that I think that she could have gotten.
Wait, I'm sorry. I saw the commercial, and Sonny Bono owns a red Vespa. Nice.
Not Sonny Bono. Sonny Bono's dead.
Or not Sonny Bono. God damn it. Why did I do that? I'm sorry. I get artists
from YouTube
names confused. Yes, the lead singer of YouTube, who is Bono.
Not
did
YouTube.
I say YouTube?
You said
Oh,
YouTube.
God.
YouTube.
Yeah,
Bono.
I'm telling you, COVID brain is real, man.
It's fine.
I have all of YouTube U2's albums, for crying out loud.
Okay, you need to you need to drink right about now is what you need to do.
Yeah.
What she could have done, because we're going to be getting back to it very shortly, I'm sure. What she should have done is pointed out each of these people who have complimented you, blah, who has done whatever heinous thing while in power, and blah, who's done whatever heinous thing to stay in power, and blah, to do whatever heinous thing to stay in power, have complimented you by saying blah 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 blah, blah because they're dictators and they're despots and such, to paint him in the same piece. But we kind of wait and see. All right,
Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Let's hear again. David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back to this historic ABC News presidential debate tonight. We're going to continue here, and I want to turn to the war in Ukraine. We're now 2.5 years into this conflict. Mr. President,
that should have been a weekend
the position
conflict,
of the Biden
right?
administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy.
Started on that.
But it's in America's
I don't
best
think the
interest
U.S.
do
needs to
so,
help
arguing that if
Ukraine
Putin
anymore
wins,
because
he may be
Ukraine
emboldened to
apparently
move
has been
even further
kicking
into other
Russian
countries.
butt.
You
I
have
mean,
said you would
sure,
solve this
go
war
ahead,
in 24
but
hours. You said
they've
so
just
just
been
before the break tonight. How exactly would
leaving
you do
sunflowers
that?
all over
And I
the
want to ask
place.
you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being used.
Yeah, see, he's calmer now, and that is a politically correct answer
It's
that
the
he's giving.
millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look,
it's all fake numbers.
We're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. They're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening. We're in for 250 to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced to equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect
the answer to the question.
your president. Okay, they respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years.
They're suddenly good
Putin.
people
Hasn't
again.
Spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it.
They were good.
That is a war that's
Then they were
dying
bad.
to be settled. I
they
will
were good
get it
again.
settled before I even become president.
guy
If I win,
is more
when I'm
flippity-floppity
president-elect,
than a
and what I'll
pancake.
do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That
He's
war
more
would have never
flippity-floppy than a
happened.
fish out of
And
water.
in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because
the
our
Muddy Mud Skipper
country
show.
has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers,
everybody
he
gets
did
that
it after I
reference.
left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify,
And he's doing FUD. Fear, uncertainty, doubt.
We don't even know.
Fear,
Is he our
uncertainty, doubt.
president?
No
But
solutions.
we have a
Fear,
president
uncertainty, doubt.
that doesn't
Vote
know
for
he's
me,
alive.
Otherwise,
your time
fear,
is up.
uncertainty, doubt.
Just to clarify the question.
Oh,
he's
given the stare.
Best interest.
He was
for
not
Ukraine
happy
to win
being
this war. Yes or no?
I think it's the U.S. best interest to get this war finished and just get it done.
All right.
Answer the
Negotiate a
question.
deal, because we have to
Answer the
stop all
question,
of these
fucker.
human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine in this moment, but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be any different from what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me.
Yes.
I believe the reason that Donald Trump said that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up.
Not the one
And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands as an independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies
She just doesn't put boxes in bathrooms, you know?
that you are no longer president,
bathrooms full of boxes
and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes
No, I understand it, but it was really smooth.
Starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake of favor and what you think is a friendship with what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight. Afghanistan came up in the last hour. I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now.
He shut her up.
He's got a thing that other people
she
don't
didn't
have.
show that he's in
They don't ever talk
control,
about that. Got
he is
nuclear weapons.
Big
Nobody
orange
ever thinks
man
about
with
that.
big manly hands.
And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening, but he does have that. Something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong thing. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country. She goes down as the worst vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fellow. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. That is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate.
I'm upset, however, that she didn't say.
I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Have I met?
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these countries, the 28 countries at the time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen. He's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were paying almost all of NATO.
He's actually
being ripped off by Europe.
I'm watching online.
I do want to ask the Vice President.
Commentary.
Do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal
Federated
played
social
out?
media system?
Well, I will tell you, I
And
agreed with
Right now,
President
the
Biden's decision
universal thing is
to pull out of
big orange
Afghanistan.
man, strong.
4 presidents said they would,
The
and Joe
moderators
Biden
really
did.
need to mute his microphone.
And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war.
You don't say.
And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them
that came out hard.
to Camp David because he does not again appreciate the role and responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has consistently disparaged and demeaned members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations with the Taliban.
She's a liar.
If you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the killing. That's the fighting force within Afghanistan. They don't bother doing that because, they deal with the wrong people all the time. But I got involved. And Abdul is the head of the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed.
My God.
We did have an agreement
Tell me this
negotiated
guy
by
doesn't
Mike Pompeo.
sound like he's
It was
just-
a very good agreement.
That's a really
the
nice
reason
house.
It was good.
Damn
It was,
shame if something
we were getting
were to
out.
happen
We would
to
have been out
everyone
faster
that
than
lives in
them,
it.
but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers.
So that's actually
We wouldn't
something
have
that
left
is
many
really easy for
Americans
him
behind,
to do.
and we
to
wouldn't
make
have left.
those
We
kinds
wouldn't
of
have left.
threats, because he's been doing that to
$85
businesses
billion
for decades.
worth of brand new, beautiful
doing that
military
to
equipment
small,
behind. And just to finish,
businesses that he's
they
had
blew it.
contracts for him.
The agreement
And then when
said
they've
you
come to
have to
collect on
do
the bills,
this,
he's essentially done
and they
this
didn't
sort of
do
thing.
it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move on.
And these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. And by the way, that's why Russia attacked Ukraine, because they saw how
The current
incompetent she
big comment
and
is,
her
is that
boss are.
if
President
they mute
Trump,
his
thank
mic
you.
and correct him, he'll
I wanna
storm
move
off
on
the
now to
stage, and
race
they don't want him
politics
to
in this
leave.
country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black.
As
I
an
want to
aside,
ask a
Jack
bigger
has
picture
pointed out,
question here tonight.
over $2
Why do you
billion
believe it's
US,
appropriate to weigh in on the
sent to
racial
Ukraine.
identity of your opponent?
And
I don't,
Denmark
and I
is
don't
nowhere
care.
near
I don't care
the
what
size
she
of
is.
the US.
I don't
So,
care.
yeah, thank you,
You make a
Denmark.
big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I don't
asking.
know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read she was black, and that's
That was a
okay.
faux pas.
Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's, I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by
Honestly,
race.
I think
And
COVID
let's
did enough to
remember,
divide us. We
how
don't need
Donald
human
Trump
beings
started. He
entering
was
into the picture to do more of it.
land,
COVID is
he owned
still
land,
around.
he owned buildings, And
I
he
know
was
that
investigated
was kind of the thing
because
that's still
he
doing its
refused
thing.
to rent.
Yeah, at a meeting
property
yesterday
to
I
black
was at,
families. Let's
the
remember, this is the
president
same individual
of the group
who took out
was
a
telling
full-page
people
ad
that
in
they
the New York
need to
Times
not wear their masks
calling for the execution
because her doctor said
of 5 young
This piece.
black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5.
Yes, thank you.
Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States.
Thank you. Yep.
And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell
the
me,
fingers we're worried about, it's
can
the
we
guns.
please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most
No,
divisive
stop.
presidency
Oh, fuck me.
in the history
Just
of our country.
stop.
There's never been anything like it. They're destroying our country, and they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park 5, they admitted,
Oh, for
they
the
said,
love of
they
fuck.
pled guilty.
Look, guys,
And I
it's
said,
real
well,
easy.
if they pled
Use the
guilty, they
microphone
badly
mute
hurt a
like
person,
this.
killed a
You
person ultimately. And if they pled
You
guilty, then
turn
they
it back
pled,
on
we're
again
not
when it's
guilty.
time. It's
But
not
this is
a
a person
difficult thing.
that has to stretch back
Dude, you forgot
years,
the clicking
40,
noise.
50
No,
years
I
ago.
did it. I did it.
Because
I did it
there's
on the
nothing
phone.
now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger.
I don't
But
want
they're
his mute button's
destroying
not
our
working. I forgot to
economy.
change
They
the
have no
batteries.
idea what a good economy
Anybody got
is.
any, double
Their
A's?
oil policies, every single policy. And remember this.
It was a
She is
PlayStation
Biden.
controller.
You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she
Is that
says.
too soon?
She is Biden. The worst inflation
He
we've ever
wants her
had.
to be Biden.
A
He
horrible
literally
economy
just stated
because
it. He
Inflation
wants her to be
has
Biden
made it
because
so
he can't
bad,
face her.
and she can't get away with that.
Thank you. Your time is up,
I
Lindsay.
want to respond to that, though. I want to just respond briefly. Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction, to pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life, to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to pursue what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream by offering a help with down payment of $25,000 down payment assistance for first-time home buyers. That's the kind of conversation, I believe, David, that people really want tonight, as opposed to a conversation that is
So somebody's saying
constantly
that
about
the
belittling
one of the possible
and
reasons he's not getting
name-calling.
cut off so much
Let's turn
is
the
that
page
the
Vice President
moderators
Thank you. Let's turn
don't
to
actually
policy.
have the
Let's turn to
mute
we have
button
to move on.
that is
President
actually
Trump.
in the
Let's turn to
production.
policy,
She has
please.
a plan to defund the police. She has a plan to confiscate everybody's gun.
President Trump,
she
we
has
do
a
have to
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
allow
issues. Turn off the
fracking in
microphone.
Pennsylvania.
That's
or
the thing.
anywhere else.
Okay,
I don't
That's
think
what
they
her
actually
plan
have the
is for
power to
until
turn it off.
justice.
I
It's,
just think
Lindsay, go ahead.
President
Trump,
no,
I'm wondering if this
President
person hit it on the head. That
No,
somebody in
I'm sorry.
production has it.
No, I'm sorry. We're going to
And if
move on,
he
Vice
doesn't
President
get
Harris.
his chance to reply to everything she says,
For president,
he's going
you
to
have long
leave.
vowed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote, unless we can do something much better. Correct. Last month, you said, quote, we're working on it. So tonight, 9 years after you first started running, do you have a plan, and can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it, and we're going to replace it. But remember this. I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats came up. They wouldn't vote for it.
Oh, no.
I had a choice to make when I was president.
You can't know.
Do I save it and make it as good as it can be? Never going to be great.
So trustworthy.
Or do
Just
I
ask all
let it rot?
Legal cases.
And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration. We read about the bad ones. We had some real bad ones, too, and so do they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain.
Can you tell us what
I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be?
My plan is to
and I saved it.
pardon myself.
But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money, and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan.
You have concepts of a plan.
But if we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that, and you'll be hearing about it in the not-too-distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run health care system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private health care options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous lying about this stuff. As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said, at the time because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president, and we, over the last 4 years, have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed, for the first time, Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it,
Vice President Harris,
in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot of...
You made a mistake. Number one, John McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare. Much less money, but she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance
kills.
That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have
He's seeing it from
she
the
wants
viewpoint
everybody
that his
to be
private
on government
insurance
where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate
he's giving
change.
her the glare because a
Trump,
woman
with
just
regard
cut
to
him
the
off.
environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said the climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has
he doesn't like that. She put words in his mouth. See? She quoted him.
Who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up.
He's simmering.
You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as Vice President over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been Vice President. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in Detroit or South Carolina or any other place. What they've done to business and manufacturing in this country is horrible. We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China?
Manufacturing.
Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife?
They allowed manufacturing
why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential debate from Philadelphia. Back in a moment.
Okay, so this whole thing about why don't they prosecute him for getting whatever money, I'm sorry, if you want to open up that door, I'm pretty sure we've got about $2 billion for some other people who have been in positions of authority in the government. Just saying. You know, the man...
This has been a roller coaster, man.
The best way of knowing that Donald Trump is lying is to double check if he has a heartbeat. You know, because I wouldn't trust an EKG machine to be telling me the truth at this point if it was hooked up to him. I don't trust his own biology.
No, it's the same litmus test of a lawyer. If their lips are moving, they're lying. Now, to be fair, lawyers are paid to lie.
I don't believe, to be fair to lawyers, that they lie. They find every loophole that can be exploited.
True.
And
unless they're not getting paid anymore.
That's their job.
Which is why so many lawyers who are finding loopholes for Trump have quit.
Yep.
They have all quit.
I'm just waiting for the day the press announces Trump is using a public attorney. Oh, that would grind his gears.
You know.
But unfortunately, not that lawyers are humans too, but unfortunately, because lawyers are also human, they make human mistakes. So there are lawyers who are like, I can make it big by being Trump's attorney for 6 months. I won't get paid because he's not worth anything, but I can at least say I stood up and represented him for a short period of time if I can do something positive, to go that route.
Any artist worth their salt in their cells will tell you, I will never be compensated in exposure because it's never enough.
Correct.
Oh my God.
And yet you still have people who fall for it.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's amazing how stupid some really brilliant
Which is why I
lawyers
love that whole Mike Montero's speech, and I'm going to swear here, entitled "Fuck You, Pay Me."
I got no problem with that one.
Yeah. I mean, because I'm just quoting the title.
Yep.
I'm not saying how I feel.
It's perfectly reasonable. Yep. Perfectly understandable.
And for those out there in YouTube land, you got to look it up. It's a great speech. He does curse. It's not for children. But it does get the point across of you have to value your own work and you have to stand up for yourself because companies will take advantage of you.
Oh, yeah.
And that's part of why we're seeing so many problems. Why manufacturing in this country went away, because companies took advantage of the people. They took advantage that it was cheaper to outsource than to keep Americans employed, and so on and so forth. It was over a long period of time.
Yep. Just dial up any telephone tree, man.
Oh, God.
I mean, tell me where the lie is. I used to work for an inbound telephone sales, inbound sales telephone line in a call center. I mean, we knew our shit cold, man. I knew my products cold.
Ooh. Oh, man. Some people, and let me have like some sick burns. To quote this one person whose name I can't pronounce, Kamala is aborting the 78-year-old baby on live television. I'm not sure I would agree with abort. More like putting him in a corner and giving him. Oh God, no! I don't want that mental image. I'm not going to say it.
I would say putting him over her shoulder and burping him, but
no, because he's into some really. Not the kink shame. He's into some things I'm not. So, and I don't want to have the mental image. No, I would say that she's been slapping him around a bit. Now, has she put the final one over on him? Let's see what the closing is. It looks like we're coming back to it.
Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
He's just going to badmouth ABC after
closing
this, right?
statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us.
Don't gesture
and we
at
can
him.
chart
Don't
a new
acknowledge him.
way forward.
Just straight at us.
And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create
She's
an
not looking at
opportunity
him.
economy,
She's looking down
investing
into the right.
in small
It's a memory
businesses,
thing.
in new families, in what we can
but she
do
did
around
gesture over to
protecting
him.
seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now.
Good.
Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years.
Because
they've had
she's
3.5 years
to
to fix the border.
President.
They've had 3.5 years to create jobs and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready
Don't
for
forget,
it. We can't
his family
sacrifice
history is
our
tied to
country
Nazi Germany.
for the sake of bad vision. But I just
That's why
ask one
his
simple
family is here
question.
in the U.S.
Why
They fled
didn't she
because
do
they were
it?
going to be
We're a
prosecuted.
failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline.
They even
We're
did a
being
name
laughed
change.
at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on with Russia and Ukraine. We're going to end up in a third world war, and it'll be a war like no other because of nuclear weapons, the power of weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our ABC News presidential debate from here in Philadelphia at the National Constitution Center. I'm Lindsay Davis.
And I'm David Muir. Thank you for watching here in the U.S. and all over the world, and from all of us here at ABC
I'm
News.
just...
You know what? Kill it. Kill. Just screw this noise.
And that is the end.
Holy, you know, seriously, what the, man. Okay, so here, my God, so
now,
many.
Don't forget, we don't know the technicalities of the setup. We know it was agreed upon, but we don't know for a fact. You and I both know that the technology is there, that they could easily have set up buttons in front of the moderators that if they press them to mute the microphone or switch to toggle it, that it doesn't actually toggle it. It sends a signal to production that they want it toggled, right? And it's quite possible that despite who the moderators were, okay, the people in production might be on the opposite spectrum of the political field. And let's be honest, let's be completely honest. There is no greater political entertainment than having Trump on the air spouting bullshit. Because that's what the news has become, entertainment. As much as we hate that concept, we see examples of it nonstop in this country to the point of where it's been going on for so long, we've become desensitized to it.
Yeah, Seeker's got a good point over there on YouTube. Glad they did fact check him. They let him walk away from January 6th fact check, though. Yeah, no kidding, man. There was some fact checking. I do not believe there was nearly enough. And if memory serves, there was a lot of contention about how much live fact checking was going to be done, which part of me wants to say a moderator's job is not to be the fact checker. Their job is to make sure that everybody follows the agreed upon rules. However, in the spirit of journalistic, what's the word that I'm looking for?
Integrity?
Yes, integrity. Thank you. Exactly right. Journalistic
What's integrity?
It's what...
That was a joke. That was a bad joke.
It's what Walter Cronkite had. And yes. I pull up the spirit of Walter Cronkite because when you listened to Walter Cronkite, you knew you were getting the facts. You were getting germane information. He was not going to go ahead and make it all fancy and flourishy and give you any good or bad feeling. You were going to get what was necessary, what you needed to know.
He also didn't tend to make hypocritical statements either.
That's right. That's right. And let's also make sure that we understand. He built a lifetime reputation. I do not know of any newscasters, and admittedly, I do not really watch broadcast news any longer. I do not know of any broadcast journalists who have a lifetime built of good intentions, of integrity, the way that Walter did. Honest and truly. So, should there have been live fact-checking? Should things have come to a grinding halt when a blatant, flagrant lie, not misinformation, lie, was told? Absolutely.
And with the whole dogs and cats things being stolen and eaten and such, that's where we saw journalistic integrity actually stand up for itself. And the moderators pointed out that what they were doing was ABC needs to point out that the investigation into those claims were found to be essentially unfounded, without any kind of merit.
Right. That was the word that was used. Unfounded.
Yeah. And which means that they're empty claims, that they have no evidence backing them at this time.
Yeah, so to borrow
Trump doubled down, yeah.
And to borrow somebody, I don't know that you'd seen about this one. The DNC convention, Mike Lindell shaved his mustache, went in undercover, and was trying to talk down at this 12-year-old kid to try to make his talking points to him. And this 12-year-old kid went ahead and I'm going to paraphrase. So your source is just trust me, bro.
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah, just trust me, bro.
Just trust me, bro. That was beautiful.
Well, there's a follow-up. If he is found guilty and they have to cart him off to jail, he can always use the defense. Hey, don't tase me, bro.
They will.
No, they wouldn't tase him. They wouldn't do that because that would set a precedent for tasing former presidents.
Yeah, TP Seeker's also got a couple things over here. Item 1. Well, I'm doing them inside out here. News anchors are not journalists anymore. Sad but true. And we societally are more the hurt for that. Second point. Again, inside out a little bit. Fairness doctrine being abolished is what turned news into entertainment. Yes, we do agree on that one. You've said that on too damn many occasions, unfortunately. Also said...
And I agree, too.
I can't wait to watch Colbert tonight. It's going to be good.
Also said, is it me, or does anyone remember seeing a timer? I don't remember seeing a timer on the screen. I was actually thinking about trying to find one to put in for OBS, but I wouldn't have been able to do it properly.
With all the craziness, timer wouldn't have helped.
Yeah, agreed. And also said
The
yeah.
The moderators were letting Trump go and ramble off and say whatever he wanted. Occasionally, they let Kamala do the same thing, but Kamala, yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah, I have a hard time with it too. I really have to like triple check my head before Kamala.
Yeah,
so
it's 3 syllables, 2 letters each. Kamala.
Yeah.
By the way, he was allowed to rant off and spout off a lot more than she did, but she also knew better.
Yeah,
so long as he had an open mic, he had all the audience. He had everyone in the world that was watching the debates, and he had their attention.
Yeah.
All he had to do was just keep talking.
By the way, the best T-shirts that I've seen right now are a black T-shirt with a big red chest-sized comma on it, and then a scripted lowercase LA. Comma,
yes, I love that.
I love that. That's so adorable. I love it. Yeah. Okay. Jack is also chiming in. I wish that Trump at least could get his Ukraine facts straight. I don't.
When has Trump gotten any facts straight?
Thank you. I'm glad one of us.
Unless the only time Trump gets his facts straight, I mean, truly is on point with any facts at all, is when he has his teleprompters and he's using them and not going off script. Because the second he goes off script, numbers start coming out of his ass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Let's also kind of point out how well-heeled his right ear appears tonight.
Yeah, I was looking at comparison photos, and I can see where that little notch came out of, and it's just a teeny tiny little notch. But because it was an injury on his head, it bled like a mofo.
Yep, which is exactly the reason.
Bleed heavily.
Yeah, which is exactly the reason why they have traditionally done the forehead cutting in professional wrestling entertainment, because the skin on your forehead is fairly thin, kind of the same way that it's very thin on your lips, but it's very thin. Therefore, you can cut a little bit, but it bleeds like crazy. It looks great, but there's like nothing to it.
In fact, if you ever want to see something really scary, assuming you don't pass out at the sight of blood. Otherwise, if you do, don't go looking this up.
Yeah, for anybody that's got a problem with blood, I'm terribly sorry we talked about it. I'm sorry about that.
There are still practices. I don't know about here in the U.S., but there are still practices where what they do is doctor makes a very small hole with a needle, but one of the syringe needles in a prominent vein in the forehead over a bowl, and the pressure streams blood out. And
yes,
I've seen this process. There's a name for it. I don't remember what the name is because my brain is Swiss cheese right now. But it's at least not in the US, but it's considered to be a practice similar to leeches and so on and so forth.
It's a form of bloodletting.
Oh yeah.
And it's somewhat still practiced in certain parts of the world, and it's very deeply disturbing if you ever see a video of it.
Yeah, Seeker's also here. Oh my freaking god! A dear loved one is laughing about Trumpsky mentioning Germany in his closing argument. Right there with you, bro. Right there with you. Wow. I'm gonna use an expression, and for those of you that speak Yiddish, I'm sorry for my pronunciation. The chutzpah on this motherfucker, you know? Holy shit.
Hey, that was pretty good, dude.
Yeah, I'm Italian, but I can still say motherfucker with the best of them. So, it's pretty good. Wow.
No, I want to see that probably will never happen is I would like to see the technical setup. I want to know whether or not the moderators truly had full, active, 100% unimpeded control over the microphones, or if their toggles, assuming they had them, were merely buttons that sent a command changing an indicator in the production booth that they wanted the mic muted or unmuted, where the production team did the work.
Yeah.
I really want to know if that's the case or not, because I honestly, I'm kind of hyper focused on this right now because I've already done with
The
the
only
details of
one.
the debate. If it truly was the production team that was in charge of the mics, then I have to give credit to the moderators for managing as best they could when certain things were outside of their control. Because there were certain times where his mic, they couldn't seem to turn it off or whatever, but they kept interrupting him to try to get it back under control, which just made him talk louder and over them more, showing his man-child nature. But I mean, they did try. They really did try at some points, and I think at one point they just kind of went, we don't have any control over it anymore. Well, just let it go.
Yeah. Seekers also got it over here. Swear Trumpsky got more time. That's how I feel also. I know full well there are going to be plenty of people who are going to be stop watching it, or even just ballpark figuring it, and finding out where the bulk of the time went, and how close to actually following the format moderators were. And I'm going to tell you right now, ain't no way in hell this moderator team is going to score over a D.
Yeah. Again, assuming they had full control of the situation in terms of mic muting and all that, I wouldn't give them more than a D.
Yeah.
If part of the control was taken away from them in terms of, production booth, the production team having control, because you and I both know that there are a lot of conservatives in the news industry, even on non-conservative or supposedly middle ground news stations, because they have a lot more. They're much more successful in the cutthroat nature of the news industry. Let's be, sadly, but they are. And if they were doing the best with what they had outside of their control, I would upgrade it to a B. Just me.
C
now,
plus B minus.
Yeah.
How many news stations are controlled by friends of Trump? How many of them have been given?
The answer is
I want
too damned many.
Right. But at the same time, I wouldn't say that there are a lot of news stations controlled by friends of Trump. More that there's plenty of news stations that are heavily influenced by certain political groups and lobbyist groups that also influence or produce influence on the GOP sides. So it's not necessarily that they're friends of Trump. It's just it behooves them to try and help the side along a little bit. And I would honestly say that in terms of ignoring the moderators for a moment and just focusing on how the two did, while yes, Harris, Vice President Harris, did miss out on a couple answers I would have loved to hear. One, because she was so long-winded about responding to something previously when she could have just answered the question and then returned to go backwards with the remaining time, which I think would have been the better option in my opinion, but I'm not a politician. I'm more rational than that, I think. And but also another one where she just didn't answer the question at all. Trump, on the other hand, the Oompa Loompa Mussolini over there, I'm really surprised they didn't have to bring out a medic to check his blood pressure. I'm really surprised. They might have done that during the commercial break. Who knows? Sir, we need to take your blood pressure. Why? You've got this vein thrombosis throbbing on your forehead. Not that he actually had one, but
Oompa Loompa Mussolini. I like that.
Yeah. I know it's an insult to Oompa Loompas everywhere, but you know it's because his hair's not green that we know of. He got, oh god, yeah. I would hold him back 2 grades.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of failing him.
Yeah.
In terms of answering questions.
Seeker's asking, well, not asking, but you Harris dropped the ball a couple times. Man, I don't know about you, but I'm listening to some of the stuff, and was it just me, or did I hear her trying to piece together campaign advertisements and campaign stump speeches instead of answering questions or trying to answer questions with what sounded like that instead of actually answering questions? I mean, did you get that too?
In one of the 2 ones on my...
No.
Oh, sorry. My apologies.
She was doing her best with a bully.
I mean, it's fair. I figuring that you had more than that.
I have a few opinions about Trump, but I'm not going to say them.
What better opportunity?
Because it could get me in real trouble.
All right. That's fair. Well, in that case,
I'm kind of wondering if one of the reasons why she was picked is kind of the same reason why Hillary was picked. The sacrificial lamb. Because there was actually a debate up in Canada amongst people that I was talking with at the time, way back when, that Hillary lost not so much because she was the worst candidate, but because she wasn't prepared to be the candidate. Didn't matter what skills she had, she was an easy target. But at the same time, Trump, his plan, he was quoted stuff about how stupid Republicans are. If I'm going to run for president, I'm going to run as a Republican. He said that. And in your personal Discord, I actually put I believe it was a YouTube video. It could have been a clock app thing about how the MAGA IQ in general has gone down. The Republican IQ in general has gone down.
That doesn't surprise me in the least. It hurts.
And why Trump won, because he was talking to the common man. He knows what we want and speaks his mind and da 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 da. Oh, if they only understood how volatile and damaging he was and is.
Yeah, once upon a time ago, the common man read at a 12th grade level, which, grand scheme of things, is not bad. Not great, not bad, but as we've said before, you dumb down public education, which is the biggest education wheelhouse in the country. Well, when that reading level goes down, well, that kind of impacts a whole bunch of other stuff anyway. Not that I would have any knowledge about education whatsoever. I mean, I wanted to be an educator at one point. Why would I ever keep tabs on this kind of thing?
You've been educating me, but yeah. It felt like a ballerina versus a bull. She's pretty to look at. She's smart. She's agile. She's able to do all sorts of wonderful tricks and jumps and spins. But that bull has his sights on her, and he's going to run her down.
The bull only has to get good once.
Yeah, all he has to do is hit her once. And then his people will run.
Yeah.
She said some stuff in this debate. I can't pinpoint it out, but you guys were doing it for me, especially tech. And the Republicans, the MAGAs are going to go, she did that, she did that, she did that, she said that, and they're going to run with it. And all it tech said was just takes one thing of her screwing up on, and they're going to run with it to prove that she's unfit to be president.
And all the same while, doesn't matter what he does, he's just gold. Ironically enough, the golden calf.
He's a rapist. He's a PDF file. He's a felon. He paid off one of his victims that we know of. There's probably other victims. Yeah. He suggested that his daughter would have been somebody that he would date while he was married to somebody else. It's no wonder Tiffany has gone away from him. She doesn't want anything to do with her dad. Ivanka, sure. But Tiffany, no, I'm staying away from him. That man should not be allowed anywhere near children, anywhere near women under the age of 30. Hell, around any woman, period, because he's just too dangerous.
Yep. There is one piece that I want to go back to very briefly, because I don't want to go, and I don't want to go past the bottom of the hour. So we got about 20 minutes tops at this point. One of the things that was brought back up again was about the Central Park 5, the Central Park jogger case, back from April of 1989. The piece that was mentioned about this was how there were 5 people that were arrested, going to be on trial, and that Donald Trump bought a full-page ad in the newspaper to call for the, let's just euphemistically call it the death penalty for these individuals. You could just as easily have called it murder, extermination, culling, whatever terminology you want to use it. But it turned out these were people who were exonerated after. I am someone who can no longer believe in the death penalty for any crime. Not one. I put that out there because I used to. I will admit, I used to. But over the years, I have come to understand you cannot fix, you cannot correct an errant death penalty conviction and execution. If a mistake was made and an innocent person was convicted and subsequently deaded, you can't fix that. Someone who spends their life in prison, if they didn't do it, there is the chance to try to make things right. But if they did do it, they're not going anywhere anyway. But this guy's whole thing was, I want him killed. I want him dead. You know, funny enough, that sounds a lot like a mob movie line. And I just can't remember which one it is. I want these guys dead. Why'd you send me pictures of my home? That's up for you to figure it out. Be a damn shame if anything were to happen to the people that live in that house. Oh yeah, that sounds a lot like a protection racket to me. Like a mob boss. Like he's been described as for damned many years.
He is a mob boss.
Except he has no class. And I say that as somebody that's got family that came through Brooklyn, the Italian heritage back in the 50s, when those who were in the mafia were lauded in the neighborhoods because they kept people safe. They gave them jobs. And yes, it was organized crime, but they also took care of families that would have been hard up on their luck, that were having problems. Yeah, maybe they owed a little something afterwards, if they even found out that that's where it was coming from. But there were families that literally got helped. And I'm not saying that euphemistic, Goodfellas kind of way. No, they helped out because they could. So for me to go ahead and say this guy, yeah, he's trying to act like a mob boss, but he's got none of the charisma, he's got none of the class. Yeah, it's true. He has no temperament. He's just a schoolyard bully. Seekers reminding us, still classified documents for fuck's sake. Yep. So much so that the government bringing up the charges intentionally did not disclose some of the documents because just having knowledge of the documents is bad. Because just the fact that the documents exist and having that public knowledge would be bad. And tech, if memory serves, that's a level of security that, dare I say, 99.5% of the population would never, ever know about.
Oh, you mean the files in the bathroom thing?
Yeah, the fact that there was stuff that was intentionally left off of the indictments because even knowledge that such a document exists would be bad.
Oh, they should have added it.
Well, okay, so let me.
I know there's bad. I know there's bad, and I know that there's bad, and I also know that there's bad.
All right, so let me put it this way, without getting myself into trouble. When it comes to classifying material, right? There's different levels of classification.
Right.
It is possible for something to be so classified that even the name of the thing itself carries a classification rating. So it's quite possible to actually have the contents of a file to have a lower classification than the name of the said file. I know it seems like, well, why? How can that possibly be? It can. There are ratings for things that say that that Americans who are cleared can know the thing, but even if you have somebody who is from another country having a similar clearance, still can't know a thing. So it's quite possible that some of those documents had names that were classified on a level that no one in any other country could know, and that by putting it on a docket, it could make it known.
And I can see that being a thing.
Yeah, so there's plenty of reasons why some of that stuff never did it. What I would have preferred was to have called in appropriately cleared personnel to index what it was and the lump sum of classification ratings. For example, and this is not realistic numbers because I don't know what the files were, how many there were, and so on and so forth. That's not something I could possibly know. However, I would not. I think it might have been possible for an index where they said, "Oh yes, there were X number of files. This percentage of files were rated um, TSSCI. These were rated no foreign. These were rated so on and so forth." And now the ratings I'm mentioning are not classified ratings. You can go on Google and look these things up. Okay. In fact, I recommend anybody who is curious about classification system go on Google and look up the American classification system for classifying files. Everything from unclassified, because there's actually levels of unclassified, not that many, but there's a few, to the secret stuff, and see actually how things are marked and such. Because if you happen to like come across a folder in the wild with a particular classification rating marked on the folder, just opening it could get you jail time. It would be better instead to say, okay, let me call the police. It's got this rating. Obviously, we need a government official who has this rating to come validate this and secure the material, rather than potentially get themselves into trouble. So, yeah, just go on Google, or better yet, Wikipedia. The rating system is definitely in Wikipedia because I've looked it up there before. But yeah, it wasn't until I received training that I knew that that I learned that file names can be classified themselves. That never occurred to me, even though it should have. Just because it's not something that I was dealing with on a daily basis. Your average public will never deal with classified material of any kind. The general public typically deals with is unclassified information, personally identifiable information like your middle initial, your mother's maiden name, that's your PII, and personal health information, PHI. That's the kind of stuff that your health insurance company has on you or your doctor has on you. That's the stuff that's protected by HIPAA in terms of the doctor just granting it out willy-nilly to another doctor's office. They can't do that without your written permission. Unfortunately, a lot of people do not understand HIPAA laws.
Yeah, it's a whole other thing. So 2 other items.
So even if it wasn't classified material, I just want to put this one out there. Even if all those documents were all his PII and PHI, right, which means he would have been entitled to it. You still want to not store it in a bathroom.
There is that.
Yeah.
2 other items over here real quickly. From Seeker. Still wondering why the agencies the documents came from didn't go after Trumsky themselves. That's an interesting question. I think because you do have to go through DOJ, because they are the law enforcement wing, shall we say, of everything. I'm pretty sure that's the way that would go, but at the same time, I mean, the military does have their NPs. Don't know. I don't know, and in this particular situation, I'm going to actively suggest that Tech not go into any part of that, simply because I don't know what you would or couldn't get away with saying, and I don't want to put you in a position of having to, like, make a mistake accidentally. Fair enough?
So what I can say without getting into an incident is that don't forget, it's just like any court system. They have to want to prosecute, right? So if you go and you rob a grocery store for diapers and baby powder, and the store owner decides not to prosecute, the attorney general has to want to prosecute at that point. And if they don't decide to prosecute, there's no charges.
There's that.
Yeah. That's a generic kind of catch-all statement. I'm pretty sure there are probably areas where that's not 100% accurate. But yeah, I mean, if the government decides not to sue or not press charges, they're not going to.
Yeah. I'm going to get back with you on this one, and I'm going to go backwards a little bit into the chat so that you've got one to really sink your teeth into on this one.
Uh-oh.
Now I gotta see where it was, because here it is. All right, Secret asked, and this is going back a little ways because I'm kind of scrolling back a little bit. How many questions did Trumpsky actually answer? Now I'm not looking for an actual number from you, but more an overall. If you've got an actual number answer, hey, cool, I'll take it. But I wasn't.
You didn't ask me to count.
No.
You did not ask me to count. He might have answered a couple of questions, but mostly he tap danced around how great of a president he was, how great of a president he's going to be, how he's going to make America greater again, like even greater again, instead of just how he ruined it the first time without realizing he ruined it. I'm sorry, why the hell is the person who suggested people injecting bleach into their veins in order to fight COVID, how the hell is he up for president? He didn't just bungle COVID. I'm sitting in a room right now with a man whose previous wife died from COVID, and she was one of the first 200,000, not even, more like 120,000 people. That man didn't just bungle COVID. He screwed it up so royally. And people died.
I don't know if you remember it, but at one point he intentionally told, and I forgot which cruise liner it was, not to dock. Don't birth, don't let your people off, because then the numbers of infected that you've got are going to go into the population, and it's going to jump up, and he will have bad numbers then. I don't know if you remember that one.
I think there was like 3 or 4 ships that were out at sea that were told not to dock, and it wasn't just the United States. Norwalk virus, ships are told not to dock, and people are stuck on them until that runs its course throughout the entire ship. What really pissed me off is he had COVID during his debate sessions with Biden, refused to wear a mask, and it's not that bad. Well, that's because the White House medical crew threw everything they had at him to keep him alive. So it wasn't that bad for him. Through every single experimental treatment that they knew was working at him in order to keep him alive. Oh, it's not that bad. And then there was all of his tweetings, every single thing that he said on Twitter, every single random rant, and then he moved it over to Truth Social.
Yeah,
somebody should have taken away his damn phone. The fact that his phone was not secure, the fact that he was too paranoid of the chefs of the White House that he basically ate junk food. And he thrived on it.
He had a junk food spread brought out.
I saw.
For, oh my God, what whatever. What
It
was
was
it?
a sports team.
It was a basketball team, a football team from college or something.
Yeah, some sort of college team. I saw the spread recently.
It was disgusting.
Well, apparently the White House staffers were on strike or something, specifically the cooks and the chefs. But he could have used his Trump money and had it catered from outside. Oh, no, can't do that. Well, isn't this catering? I mean, it is fast food. Oh, the fact that he's on the ballot again, the fact that the Republican Party has decided to let this declining,
I don't know.
declining, tired, mentally deficient, degenerate back on the ballot and is still running the party, assuming he's actually the one running the party and it isn't a cabal that's somewhere inside that's using him as a figurehead.
I don't know. I don't know. It defies coherent explanation at this time.
The only thing that I can think of is the reason why he is the Republican candidate is because his name causes all the news media to turn to him. Whatever it is he's saying, even if it's just hi, everybody turns to him, and he has the attention of the entire world's news media. Because it's not just American news media, Canada, Britain, Europe, African, Asian news media, India, Australia. Any single country probably has little bits and blips of news reports from the United States of what he's been doing day to day to day. And it's,
because if it bleeds, it leads. And nothing bleeds more than verbal vomit out of him.
Mm-hmm. But he looks so tired.
He looked tired. He looked angry.
No.
He's 78 years old. Of course he's tired.
He looks tired. If you know Doctor Who, you know what I just said, and you know why I said it.
I know. I know. It is the bottom of the hour. We've been going for long enough. I think it's worth going ahead and cutting off. I know this was kind of a weird one-off. Blame IO. I wasn't necessarily thinking about it, but she kind of threw it out there, and it was like, you know what? The worst that can happen is it's just a bunch of us that are just sitting around shooting. So, cool. Thanks for being with us. We're going to be getting on out of here. We do of course wish you all well. Those of you that end up watching this whenever after the fact, we will tell you collectively, and I'm saying this on behalf of all of us, past and present and future, hopefully, hosts for the show. Please vote. Now, yeah, we could very easily just go ahead and say, look, vote for blah. No, we are going to tell you who we want to vote for. We are going to tell you to vote. Are you likely to agree with us? Absolutely. By the numbers, statistically speaking, yeah, you probably will. But that's not the point. We want people to vote. We want there to be more than 25% of the population of the U.S. voting for a change. We'd like it to, I forget what the number is, but it'd be really nice to see, 35, 40, 50, 75% of the eligible voting population actually voting. So, whatever your conscience is that tells you, will we judge you? Maybe.
Nobody sees your vote in the voting booth. Nobody sees where you put the X, what button you push, what thing you scratch. Nobody sees it. It is your choice to choose who you want to vote for, and it's your right, and nobody has the right to tell you who to vote for. They can suggest, but once you get in that booth, it's your X.
And we will tell you later what we think of whichever winning candidate, or maybe even losing candidate. But ultimately, we believe in the process. We expect that you would too.
So, can I book myself now for that Tuesday in November for all of us to be live here again?
Likely so.
Okay, sorry, not sorry that I suggested this today.
We will see. Meantime, Io, thank you for the kick in the pants. I really wasn't thinking about it, but this'll be okay. I'm probably gonna end up turning in because I had a long tired day. Anyway, so thank you. You take care of yourself, eh?
Yep.
Tech, I'm glad you were able to make it. Thank you, and you be safe too, huh?
Absolutely. You have a good night. Get some rest. It's been a little roller coaster ride here.
Yeah, it's been for me in the personal time too.
2 hours till Colbert comes on. You guys are probably actually watching him doing it live right now. I can't wait.
We will see. Any case, over on the chat over there, Jack, thank you. Seeker, thank you. Who
over in general, Roxanne, thank you.
Yeah, and we appreciate you guys. Please take care of yourselves. We will talk with you again sometime in the near future. Other than that, please just be safe. And like I have been trying to remind myself to remind y'all, here in the US especially, school's in, please be attentive, please be aware, please be careful with all the school zones and all the buses. Not every school bus is yellow. Sometimes it's a metro bus. Please be careful because remember, any child that you save is a life that just got started. Try to remember that when you go to the polls, when you're worried about who's going to be taking care of kids. Because one wants to actively them, and one wants to passively allow them to remain as targets. Just saying. So until Sunday morning, here on the East Coast, we will catch you then. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon.